Optimize a DevOps pipeline. You got to get into the weeds, but it's doable. Streamline business operations. You might not be a domain expert, but somehow you get in there and you figure it out. One question that always seems to stump executives and leaders, even myself sometimes, is quantify what the team did and the value provided in the last quarter. It causes you to really think and try to reflect on what the heck did we do last quarter and what was the value that anybody would care about. A leader I respect recently presented something in a meeting that I thought was pretty funny. And it started off with, stop doing this. Stop cutting the lawn with the scissors, with the kitchen scissors. And when a couple different slides flashed up, I thought it was really unique in that it helps you remind you that you have to think of the big picture. A lot of times we're buried in the details. We have fire drills in the hallways and last minute executive decks that need to be done in the morning and HR issues that seem to be never ending. And as a result, we get buried in the minutia. We get buried in the things that don't really contribute to the bottom line. And whatever that means, could be people, profit, purpose, planet, could be driving operational goals or thinking about a strategic vision. But if you had to build a strategic vision for the next 2 years, you'd collaborate and come up with it. Thinking about that value sometimes can be a stumper. So what I want to do is provide a couple different ideas on how to get your arms around understanding and articulating business value. What if you were talking to a couple different leaders in a room and there was a glass wall between you and they couldn't hear anything that you said? You had these great ideas that you wanted to share and nothing was able to be communicated through that glass wall. This is often what happens when leaders present their ideas on what they achieved, on the value that was accomplished. Nobody understands because they're not speaking in terms that leaders and executives understand. So I want to give you some perspective and a couple different tools to make that transition a little bit more seamless. So first, you got to think of the big picture. And there's 3 different buckets that I want to kind of focus around that really help you dial in business value. First is cost avoided. Second is effort avoided. And third is time avoided. And when you start to think about everything in these 3 simple buckets, you're able to quantify, roll up, and articulate business value in terms people understand. So let's take a simple example. Let's say that you had a very basic initiative to streamline some executive signatures, and you had a process, and right now a lot of these signatures are in paper, and over the course of 3-4 months, you were able to streamline them. And your challenge is articulate the business value that was achieved as a result of this initiative. You can talk about the processes improved, the teams that were involved. You can highlight some of the people and have them explain their role in the bigger picture. But here's a simpler way. Let's just say that there was 3,000 signatures required that were avoided as a result of this process. Great. That's a good starting point. And now let's say that each signature took about 30 minutes to understand the contract and read it through, which means that there's about 90,000 minutes that are involved in this process. We divide by 60 and we get about 1,500 hours that it takes to go through and manage this process that we just streamlined. And then if we add an hour's estimate in a cost equivalent, say $100 an hour, we now take that 1,500 hours times $100 and we get 1.5 million. So now we're going to reframe this. Now what we did is we cost avoided 1.5 million. We reduced signatures by 3,000 and we avoided 1,500 hours in executive time wasted on non-value added work. That is one example of how to articulate business value. So as you think about streamlining business value and how to articulate and communicate that, start with the simple perspectives and keep it basic. Make sure you can roll up. You're talking in terms that executives understand and that it makes sense. If you're interested in additional ideas on how to articulate and communicate business value, I'll link to my new book that was just launched in 2021 on leading with value. Hi, I'm Peter Nickel, Data Science CIO. Have a great day.